You're tuned in to RX Radio.
I've had a few people say this to me in my life, and let me tell you something: they've never amounted to anything. You know, one of them. You know, we went to school with. No,
I already know
them.
the story. You're gonna
Three of them. Three. The list is growing, and it's like I'm not saying that if you say this, you might not be successful. I'm just saying I've never met a successful person who said this. Ready? I don't work on weekends.
Oh.
I had a motherfucker say that to me today. And I'm not going to, and it's on prescript. All our guys are absolute, and girls are absolute fucking dogs. So shout out to everyone in the prescript community for being about that life, which is like just life in general. Because it's 2025. Who the fuck do you think you are? And who the fuck do you think you're talking to? I don't work on Sundays?
Oh, man.
Grounds for termination, and I don't mean fired, I mean from life. I mean you should be put to death if those words leave your mouth. I don't work on Sunday? Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Oh, I couldn't possibly trouble the delicate. Go fucking jump off a building, because it's the only impact you're going to have on this fucking planet is if you just splat on the sidewalk. You useless cocksucker. I just can't. And look, there are people. I don't mind stupid. I don't. I've thought about this.
I do.
I figured you would.
Yeah.
But there's stupid and there's smart and there's lazy and there's driven, let's say.
Okay.
And then there's four combinations that you can either have
the Punnett square type.
The Punnett square, yes, the genetics, the Jiunta, the geneticist, the smart driven man. Spoken like a smart driven man. For those of you, try to keep up at home. And if you can't, we know which one you are. So there's the two derivations of lazy and driven, and lazy and smart, and lazy and stupid. And then there's driven and smart, and there's driven and stupid.
Mm-hmm.
The worst, smart and lazy, without a doubt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Smart,
there's a level of entitlement that comes with that.
Smart and lazy is the downfall of the human race. You can get a lot done with a hardworking, stupid person.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Pyramids. I doubt anyone, however, unless it wasn't aliens or whatever the theories are now, but if it was just good old slavery, if that's what really got it done, I can guarantee you those were built and designed by people who were illiterate.
Oh, for sure.
Hard-working. You know what? Didn't have time to waste on book learning. Just too busy dragging big stones. And look what they made. Look you think they shut it down on Sunday? The pyramid building was like, yo, I don't slave on Sundays. Yes, you fucking do. Yes, you do. And you know the story. I've told it on the podcast before. I'm going to say it again. There was two kids in chiropractic college I had separate interactions with as I went to work on a Sunday. And they were flabbergasted by my poverty, I'm assuming, because that was why I was going to work, is because I was so poor. They were just dumbfounded by how poor I was. And they're like, I can't, oh no, I got to take a day to myself. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because look, I know, the statistics on smart versus dumb, the numbers are in, and it doesn't look good. But the effort part, that variable can carry you so far, so much so that it doesn't really matter how smart you are. I don't think it does. Look at us.
I mean, yeah, that's a solid argument.
We just worked really hard.
Yeah.
Like, it blows my mind, man. And I'm wondering if we can One time I had to define thinking to someone, and we may have even done it on the podcast. And I may have like, thinking is like thinking is like trying to predict what the comments of a post you made in your head out loud would be.
Oh, it's
And then
wild.
like, it's what's crazy that was what landed with the person. Like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
Oh,
the
okay.
wild part.
I get it. I didn't think hard work had to be defined, but it's like, I think it may be worth a shot because I don't know if people know what it means.
How would you define it?
Doing things you don't want to do when you least want to do them.
Okay. Yeah,
I
because I
think
think
that's
there's a
what it is.
relativity component to this, right?
Hmm.
Hard work to like shit, man. I grew up doing manual labor. And like what some kids nowadays that were raised on iPads would consider hard work and would probably cry about. Like I work with dudes in their 60s, 70s that were like outworking kids my age. And it's like
Right.
that's just what you do.
Hmm.
And that's what you've always done because that's just what you do. So like I'm thinking this one guy in specific. I worked in a warehouse. We delivered horse feed in the summer, I guess in the winter too. But in the winter, it was mostly coal and wood pellets because that's what you do in Pennsylvania. But this guy's name was George, and he like ran this warehouse. And this dude, like, farmer hands.
Hmm.
It's like someone's wearing like a leather glove, but that's just their hand.
Hmm.
Like he had these hands when he would shake his hands, and like he was always on the move, always doing something. He was old as shit, and like never tired, never complained. Like it had to be done, and that's like in my mind, that's a cultural thing. Like I don't think people are born with that. I think that's fostered within a person because of their upbringing. Like I think it's nurture versus nature,
Hmm.
right? And I think right now with like especially with AI and like all the screens, everything comes to you. I think people they just don't have to work for anything. Like anything,
When
dude.
do you think that window closes? Like
Early.
early. Okay. All right. Like we talking 18? We talking like 14? Like when do you think like, all right, if you haven't been exposed to, guys who do tasks in blue jeans that you don't think can be done in blue jeans. Guys who
Right. Yeah.
smoke through a hole in their throat. Like if you haven't been exposed to this level of human being by this, guys whose primary mode of transportation is a forklift. Like if you haven't met
Yeah.
these guys
Yes.
by what age?
Man, I think it's something that has to go along with like the forming of someone's identity and their personality, like cognitive development.
Mm.
So I'd say like what that's probably fully formed by the time you're what 22, 25. But I
Men, yeah, a little bit longer, I think. Yeah,
yeah, so I think
25.
like leading into that there's levels to it, right? Cuz like I as soon as I could get a job, I got a job. Like as soon as I had a car, like I got a job and I went to school all day. I worked out 5 days a week, sometimes six, and then I had a job. And then there was a point where I got into college and I got two jobs. So I went to school, I worked out, I had two jobs, and then there was a point where I quit one of those jobs and I started wrestling again. So it's like ever since I was, and even before that, like I was in sports since I was, I don't know, like 8. So like as long as I can remember every single day, like I'd wake up around 6, like you do whatever, you go to school, you do your homework, you play your sport, you go to work, like every single day until I don't know, probably a lot of tomorrows from now. I've done that. And that's just been my schedule. And like you're saying, like I can't remember last time I didn't work 7 days a week. Like I like the weekends because other people don't bother me, so I can
Right.
do the work that I
Huge.
missed during the week and I can catch up on it.
Yeah.
So it's
My
like,
idea of a vacation is having people not email me.
oh my God, when inbox is cleared, like I
Oh,
just did it. I just did it like a few hours ago. I guarantee there's more emails in my inbox now.
yeah.
Yeah. But
And it's go.
I think it's a thing that like is acquired in that time, like the teenage years, probably like mid to late teenage years. And the longer that you prolong that exposure, the more you normalize it.
Mm.
And there's probably a point within there, like now working 7 days a week looks different than it did when we were first in practice, right? It's maybe not as physical. Maybe it's more in my own environment. Maybe it's a little bit more comfortable, but like I'm still engaged and I'm still working from like my brain wakes me up in the morning thinking about the things I have to do. And that's not going to let me alone until I get on my laptop and I start knocking things off this list. And then there's like, okay, I'll shut my laptop when I have eased the anxiety enough to stop working for the day, and then it just starts over the next day, and it's just like this ongoing thing.
Yeah, I just I wonder if there's a way to like to open that door back up again. Like, when I was a kid, you used to see these shows where like, kids get caught up in like juvenile detention centers and they're like robbing cars and shit and they're like 12. And then, Maury grabs them and takes them into a prison and like, hey, get your life together, kid. I wonder if there's like an adult lazy version of that where we can just like conjure up all of the lazy people and bring them to a timber mill and be like, if you don't get your act together, you're gonna have to do this, because and I don't want to. I want to keep this general because I don't want to turn this into coaching. Because if there's a pet
Right.
peeve, and today's just I've been on the pod in a couple of weeks. I just full of stuff that I fucking hate. Is people referring to idiosyncrasies in the fitness industry as unique to the fitness industry, right?
Yeah.
Look, if this is the lens by which you see your life, it's the lens by which you see yourself and the lens by which you see other people or people in general. I am not saying that this is a fitness industry thing. I'm not saying fitness industry is exclusive of this. Like, obviously, I think the coal mining industry is probably not having this plight to the same degree as people who sit on their laptop and write exercises in spreadsheets. But I don't want to pick on the fitness industry because I think that's actually that's of low intelligence. I think people who just go, the fitness industry is getting so crazy right now. Like, there's videos out of people doing dumb stuff. It's like, have you talked to anyone outside the fitness industry at all? Are they coming up with mind-bending theories? Are they really blowing your hair back with intelligence? Like, no, people are fucking dumb, and some of the dumb people work in the fitness industry. All that being said, I can't tell you how far effort can get you in this industry. I really think I think if there's a unique thing about the fitness industry, it's that effort will take you much further than because what is the talent? There's no talent. That's why the fucking bar is so low. There's zero talent required. It's actually 99% effort. Understanding that most people listening to this are in the fitness industry, it's like, get a job outside the industry.
Yeah.
Number one. And make it something that doesn't require a laptop. And if you can take a modicum of what it takes to complete a normal job and bring that into a thing that you do on your laptop, the multiplier that has on the growth and success, like they're just like constrained to the level of work that's set out by the medium and the ease by which they work.
Yeah.
It's like if you had to work in the fitness industry, but you had to use a sledgehammer, you'd have to work hard because sledgehammers are heavy and usually you have to do hard things with sledgehammers. But you get to work with a laptop or a phone. And it's like, okay, what if you pretended metaphorically that laptop was a sledgehammer and you had to wield it like a tool so often and so frequently and with such force that you were tired at the end of the day? Like, most people are just bored. Like, it blows my mind to watch people, to interact with people, to listen to people. Like, if you are not where you want to be in this industry, you are not working hard enough. Hard stop.
Yeah. I like the idea of the lateral application there because I completely agree with it. And I don't necessarily think it's something that you can teach someone late in life if they haven't exhibited that throughout their life. And an analogy I'll make, because I work in the Silicon Valley. I have now for over a decade, and I work with a lot of people that have worked really hard to climb the corporate ladder, or start a company, do whatever they've done. They've seen a lot of success, and what I've found is that successful people are successful at whatever they do because they apply the same principles to whatever they do laterally, even if it's a different task, right? So I think people that, maybe you would look at someone that's like out of shape and unhealthy and you say, oh, they're lazy. But maybe they've, found a lot of success in the thing that they do. I think if that person, say they find fitness late in life and they take to it, that they'll become very successful at accomplishing their goals within fitness and becoming healthy, losing weight, changing those health markers, whatever it is. And I think the things that in my mind drive work ethic, I think it's passion, curiosity, and then purpose, or like virtue. I think those are things that if you have those in what you're doing, you will work hard because it's independent of the work that it takes to accomplish a goal. It's those things that are driving you. And for me, like personally, I'll speak to my experience, is the things that drive me the most are exactly that. It's largely curiosity. And then I have a passion around the virtue that I've developed in the things that I think that I'm good at. So it's the desire to want to know more, to learn more, and to apply more. And then once I have that, then it's okay, how can I teach this to people that are willing to, listen to me talk, or that have similar goals than I do? And how can I have conversations around that, more so in the interest of gaining perspective on that? Because that's a very selfish endeavor on my part. It's like, I want to get better from having this conversation with you, or whoever I'm sitting across from. And that's something that it doesn't feel like work from me, but it definitely takes effort. But I'm willing to put that effort forth to get better at the things that I'm passionate about, that I'm curious about, that I care about, when I might not necessarily be able to be willing to put that effort forth if it were something I didn't give a fuck about, like botany, or like, I don't know. Yeah, some dumb shit like that. Like, I'm not lazy in the fact that I don't want to pursue botany. It's just, it doesn't interest me. I don't have any passion or curiosity. I don't have any drive to know more or learn more or be better at that.
Mm. Yeah. And I think, I don't know, I look at fitness as such an elective career. It's like, it's a luxury to be able to do this.
Yeah.
Right. Like, as if times were tough and you had to feed yourself, you're probably going to take a step into like the shittier jobs. Like, that's just what it is. Right. Like, if everything went tits up tomorrow, I would go apply at a construction job, because they would take one look at me and go like, yeah, all right, I don't know. Sure, we'll figure it out. There's a Portuguese guy over there. Go talk to him. You're hired. Like, that would just be it. So it's like, if you're not motivated or not passionate enough for either the ends or the means that this type of work provides you, I just don't know what hope is left for you as a person. Right? Like, if you opting into this like relatively luxurious lifestyle, and it doesn't, I'm not talking like cars and clothes and all that shit, just like quite literally the fact that you are comfortable enough to aspire even to like work remotely from your laptop in a setting that you control, and that's not enough to get you to do the thing, I really don't know what would do it. Like, I don't know how to, because how do you sway someone? Like, how do you get someone to work hard? I think is like my big inquiry here. This is like a genuine question, because I it's almost like talking to someone who speaks another language. Like, when I communicate, and I can tell right away, it's the number one thing that when I talk to someone, and I talk to people and I know right away if they're my people. Like, I make some of the closest friends I've made very, very quickly. You and I talk like, these are my people. I saw fucking Jack dude walked in. He looks like that'd be a problem in a fight. I want to be friends with him, and we've been friends. Marcus Leone, I've met him once, and I was like, this is my guy. Don Sally, met him once, my guy. But that same thing works in the other direction. Like, I meet people in settings and I go, I don't fuck with this person. The number one thing consistent with all the people that I meet and go, I don't fuck with that guy, is hard work. As I get to know people for whatever reason I don't fuck with, or my first inclination is like, oh, I don't know, nah, I'm cool, bro, like whatever, is they're fucking lazy. What does it take? Like, does it take some sort of like prison encampment, hard work, exposure therapy to like, here, you're going to go on a fucking chain gang in New Mexico and just like smash rocks on the side of the highway? Like, how do you get people to work hard? Like, I just don't get it.
What motivates you to work the way that you do?
Poverty, abject poverty and violence. The fear of living as poor as I have in the past. So it's like, is that the answer? Like, just,
But
is it?
what's deeper than that though? Like there has to be an association to like, all right, not having money causes stress and anxiety, or there's a lack of freedom in the way that you spend your time. Like there's got to be a deeper meaning, because it's not just like, if it's just money, then like, okay, there's easier ways to get money than the things that you've done, right? And maybe that's the whole being dumb and working hard, but but like there's got to be something deeper than just not having money, right?
Yeah, I think you just want to be you. Like, it's deeper than, it's just like being useful. Like, I think that's why I can't do edibles, bro. People look, I love drugs. Love them. I think
Drugs
they're
are cool.
great. They're my idea of an all-inclusive resort vacation type deal. But I did edibles a few times, and I've never hated an experience more in my entire life because I felt useless.
Yeah.
Like I honestly felt like something was about to happen and I couldn't do anything about it. That was like the overwhelming feeling of like, oh no, someone's going to need help and I don't know where my hands are. Like, it was just the weirdest, like, unnerving feeling. Like, yeah, like just being of service. Like, I can, don't worry, I got it. Oh, your back hurts? Cool. Hold on. Like, I did like an hour consult on a plane the other day. I was like, Emirates has this cool plane where you can stand up with the back, and like had my headphones in, and it like I was working on my laptop, sitting at this bar at the back, and I could see this guy like talking to one of the flight attendants who was tending the bar, and I'm like, I know these hand gestures. I know what this guy is describing. Had my headphones in, couldn't hear shit. And I was like, this guy hurt his back at the airport, 100%. And I just like took a headphone out, and then sure enough, he's explaining to this girl who doesn't give a fuck how he like threw out his back. And I literally like for 4 seconds, I put my headphone back on. I'm like, not my monkey, not my fucking circus. I got other shit to do. And like within a minute, I'm like, God damn it. I hate myself that I'm about to do this. And I just like go up to him and I was like, hey man, I couldn't help but overhear. What happened? And he's like, what? I was like, I was over there. I could see like you did something to your back. He's like, yeah, I just picked up my bag at the airport. I got this 14-hour flight. I got to stand the whole time. I'm like, all right, let's talk about this. And I worked, and then he fucking goes in the back, goes back in his seat, passes out for 13 hours. And then he comes up to me after like, oh my God, dude, like I thought I was fucked the whole time. And it's like that. I was like, okay, there's an opportunity where you can prove that your existence on this planet is worthwhile. And you do something about it. And I think that's innate. I really think it is, because I don't think humans were able to evolve without that of like, guy looks like he's in a bit of trouble. All right. I think I could probably help. Hold on. Like, I think that's in everyone. Or is that evolved out of us?
Yeah. No, I think at the core of that, I think there's kind of two things that I can pull from it. There's how you want to feel and how you want to spend your time, which are kind of closely linked together. And maybe it's just how you want to feel. And time is the only real currency that we have, or the way to manipulate that is what we do with our time on this rock that's hurling through outer space. So I think that people are going to be motivated by what they believe to be possible in enabling them to feel the way that they want to feel, right? Some people, that's drugs. It's heroin because that probably feels pretty good. Some people that's like being of service, like absolutely. Some people that's freedom. Some people, it might be something different for any one person. Like it could be travel, it could be eating new food, new experiences. Like it could be adrenaline, it could be nice cars, whatever that is. And I think everything in between where you're at now and that feeling is that's whatever you're willing to do, whatever you believe you have the capacity to do to bridge that gap, people are going to do, right? Because I can't in my mind imagine why anyone would work just like a salary job for the idea or the illusion that one day they'll be able to retire and do nothing. Like I think that's the illusion that a lot of people have that have that kind of mindset. And it's like it's a system that kind of breeds laziness. Is that if you come in here for 8 hours a day, we'll give you enough money to keep doing that until 65 years old, that if you're dead or you're not dead by then you can do whatever you want, which is like nothing. And like if it's someone that's lazy, like the motivation then is I'm gonna do this with the minimal effort for as long as I have to so that I could do nothing. And
Oh yeah,
that's a
I mean
sad
it's so.
existence to me.
That's you just described everyone who likes the show Friends. I'm pretty sure that's just like absolute dial tones. Yeah, okay. There's what I'll go a step further because I think I know people who live that life,
Yeah.
and I don't judge them because they don't try and pretend to be something they're not.
Yeah.
I think my biggest grade, maybe there's another layer to that Punnett square, sort of 6-dimensional matrices, which is, do you want the optic of working hard? Like, are you smart or are you dumb? Do you give effort and do you not? Or are you trying to give the facade that you work hard? Like, because there's this is logarithmic scale. So we have stupid people who don't give effort and who don't try to make it look like they do give effort. Totally fine with that. I just described pretty much everyone from my hometown. Dumb people and you know what? They work fucking, they work at, I don't want to disparage any position. They work in a retail store, don't need to apply themselves, but they're simple. They don't really care. And that's okay. And they don't try and be fucking Alex Hormozy on the internet. And they just like raise a couple kids and, maybe they get a jet ski for the Detroit River and then they die. Cool. Then there's like the stupid person who doesn't work hard, but then has the facade of working hard, right? That tries to portray on the internet like some sort of. And I think what gets me, the pinnacle of this, is the smart person who doesn't work hard, who tries to put on the facade that they work hard. That's the worst, because it's like you skipped the vital step here. Because if you do the vital step, the other thing can kind of just take care of itself.
Yeah.
Right. Like then you don't have to put effort into making it look like you work hard. You have to put effort into kind of making it look like you don't. That's where the magic is like you work hard. You don't really pay attention to put any effort into the optic of what you do, and you make an impact. It's just like, I think now with obviously social media there's a currency in the personification of hard work. Right. And it's like, I'm okay with that if the personification of hard work comes by the way of hard work. Right. Like if you're on social media and you're doing things that are hard and you're actually doing them, then hats off to you. But if you're on social media pretending to do things that are hard and you're just fucking lazy, but you want people to think you're hardworking, then I think you should crawl in a shallow grave and die. Because it's just like, and that's more people than I think otherwise, right? I don't think people understand effort. They just don't like. It's like when you train with someone and they get like 5 reps to failure, they stop and they go, "It hurt," and you're like, "Yes, exactly, that, right? Like, oh, I got tired. It's like, okay, do things you don't want to do when you least want to do them. And I think that's a pretty good proxy for effort. And if you do that enough times, just by the definition of like the fact that most people don't do that, you will get places that other people don't get.
Mm-hmm. So in your mind, what's the intersection of hard work and discipline? Because that also sounds like it could be a plausible definition of discipline.
Yeah, discipline's a tough one because I think Paul Ekman put up this thing years ago, and it stuck with me ever since. And I don't think it was his, but I forget who he credited for it. We're like, discipline doesn't exist. It's a balance of things you love, right? So the you use the word feeling, like you made the comparison to like, how do you want to feel, or what do you want to feel? And there's a mode of philosophy called emotivism, which basically like strips everything down to just that, right? Like there's no such thing as good or bad or ethics or morals. There's just like, I net feel better doing this. It's like I net feel better, you know, calling my mom versus not, right? It's not like an ethical thing. It's just like my emotions are really what are driving all of my behaviors. So it's kind of this like mode of philosophy. So I think like with the idea of discipline, like David Goggins clearly likes yelling about running and calling people bitches from the street onto the camera. Then he likes the idea of, kicking his feet up on the couch, right? That to him that's emotivism at play. So he's not disciplined. He's just he's feeding this emotional algorithm that leaves him in a place that he prefers to be. So like discipline to me is just a balance of that, right? Like if I want to if I am currently in the mindset that the idea of having a 12 pack is uh more satisfying to me mentally than eating a bunch of cake, then I'll just not eat the cake, right? And whoever makes that decision, or however that decision gets made by an individual, is just an expression of their underlying emotions, not their underlying discipline. So like I really subscribe to that axiom of discipline, that when you are faced with a decision and one seems more difficult than the other, whatever decision you make, the fork in the road, is ultimately decided by a net emotional state. That the abstinence of doing a particular thing or the indulgence in doing a particular thing carries with it an emotion that you favor. So I really think, and it's just another fucking unbelievably generic piece of content on the internet, which like doesn't have to exist, is this idea of like motivation or discipline and blah blah blah. Like stop. Everyone needs to stop making that fucking post, because it really, I think there is, to your point earlier, like there's a deeper psychological component to it that is driving it, right? Like in the situation that you pressed me on the question, it's like I think it's the same thing. It's like motivation or discipline. Like motivation doesn't last, and discipline, but it's like, what are you talking about? We're dealing with human beings here. Like there is, we are emotional social creatures. All you need to do is to figure out a way to have the outcome closer tied to an emotion that's favorable to the person. And then whatever veneer you want to put in front of it, whether it's motivation or discipline, doesn't really matter, because it's the outcome of the emotion that's elicited by the behavior that's going to indicate whether or not the behavior occurred. It's classic learning, right? It's Pavlovian. Ring a bell and I salivate. Like it's if you associate a positive outcome with the thing that you think is hard, and that drives your emotion, that's going to be what drives your decision, right? So I'm not like, for me, and because motivation is two pronged, and motivation and discipline, I know, are cross pollinating here, but motivation is running towards something while running away from something, right? Like the old study with the rat and the cheese and the cat, right? So you put like have you heard about this? Do you know this study?
Not the study. I'm familiar with the principle though.
Yeah, they like tied basically they tied a rat's tail to a spring that had measured the force in which it was pulling. They put it in a cage and they put cheese on the other side, and it like kind of pulled pretty hard towards the cheese because it wants cheese. And then they put another rat in another cage, same setup, but they fanned in the scent of a cat and then watched the fucking thing run that much more. So you're going towards something that you want while running away from something that you don't, right? That's the essence of motivation. So it's like when you're trying to like what are those two things for people? What are they running away from? What do they fear? And what do they move towards for? What are they driven to? What is the positive emotion that they want?
Yeah.
Right? So it's like it's balancing those two things in a way where they act according to that balance of moving away from negative emotion and moving towards positive emotion. So
Yeah.
it's like, but I think one thing, and I was talking to my a friend of mine earlier about this, is when you've had near death experiences or you've been in actual physical danger, I think it's a really good calibration tool because I'm like a pretty, and I think everyone is, but like the idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Sort of this pyramid of ascension, and there's these different levels, and the base level is like, the need for survival. You have water, you have food, shelter. You're not getting fucking. You're not on the south side of Chicago. You're not getting shot at every day. And then it kind of gets a little bit more ethereal as you go up, right? And at the top, a need for some sort of like legacy or self actualization or fulfillment. If you haven't traversed to the bottom of that hierarchy, and you've never been in situations where you're like, I don't know, dog, like it's pretty rough out there. It's pretty bleak. You may convince yourself that the higher, more ethereal levels of needs are, if you feel like you're going, like if you are in a social setting and you, I don't know, like I think of people who've gotten canceled on the internet, right? Said some dumb shit, did some dumb shit. Fuck, there was a camera there or someone was recording it. I've seen people handle this very differently. I've seen people who it's absolutely toppled them and to which they've never returned. And I see people who brush it off and it's kind of a joke. And I'm sure some people in the social media world can think of a few cases of this quite recently. And it's one thing that is consistent amongst the reaction of people who get canceled and how they navigate it is people who have been in actual real danger don't give a fuck because they know that some sort of like social canceling, that death is at a higher level of need. And they've been down to the lowest level. They go, oh, people are going to not follow my Instagram account. Like, am I going to die? No. But people who've never had that, like, back up against the wall feeling quite literally, that's their death. That then they think they cease to exist. Like if someone gets their Instagram hacked or canceled or whatever, they don't know that there's another level. If you don't have exposure to that, right? So for me, it's like back to your original question about like discipline or motivation. It's understanding that some people's fear, the fear of, let's use like the getting canceled analogy, or let's stick with that. That's like someone putting a gun to your head, right? Like if you think like, oh, this is end of days, like, yeah, dude, I'll give you my wallet, I'll give you whatever. Like I'll make that Faustian deal with the devil if I think I'm actually going to die. But if someone's like, I'm going to cancel your Instagram account, like, okay, like, ooh. But if you haven't had the barrel in your mouth before, you're gonna react like that's the barrel in your mouth, right? And so it's like figuring out, okay, what is that fear for someone that they need to be motivated to move or incentivized to move away from, and what are they chasing? What's that next level, right? For me, early days it was easy, and I know you're the same. It's like I don't want to be poor and hungry. Yeah. I want to move away from that. I want to move towards food. Like it was literally like I want to move towards having dumb problems. That's what I wanted.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And it's like the whole concept of loss aversion, right? I think it's more impactful for people to have the perception of losing something they've already obtained than it is the illusion of gaining something they've never had, right? Like, I don't know. you kind of live all over the world, but I live in the United States, where like the American dream is like starting a business, becoming wealthy, like living the life you want to live. Everyone essentially has the ability to go ahead and do that. Like there's nothing stopping them from doing that, but people stop pursuing it at a certain point. Or maybe they're not properly motivated by that. They're more motivated by, like, I'm very much the same as you. Like I'm motivated by the fear of losing what I've obtained. Or like I've been in some pretty shitty places. Like the fear of going back to those places is a more impactful motivator than the possibility of gaining unlimited wealth. So the thing that drives me more so than the illusion or the possibility of, becoming a billionaire is just not having to go through the hardships that I've gone through in the past. Right. So and I think somewhere along that spectrum, everyone is somewhere, they have a level of comfortability along that spectrum that they're like, you know what, this is okay. Like a complacency along the way. And I think that exists in everyone to some degree at some point. Maybe some people, it's much further than what they'll ever be able to obtain. So they'll be in pursuit of that forever. I think some people, they get a job at the bank and they make 85,000 a year and they can support their wife and their two kids. Like I think they get to that level of comfortability where, you know what, they're okay. And there is like a satisfaction fulfillment component to this that I think is parallel along this entire conversation that does drive someone's motivating factor to like, how hard am I going to work? And like, not saying the guy that works at the bank doesn't and has two kids, like he's probably got a hard life. He's got a hard life in different ways that I'm unwilling to make my life hard, but that's also in pursuit of a different end goal. Right. So I think that, whatever it is, I think moving away from the situation you don't want to be in is always going to be a more impactful motivator for you to do things that you don't want to do than moving towards something that you could possibly have.
So you're saying everyone's got to go to Dallas, Pennsylvania at least once a year, is what I'm hearing.
That is a huge motivating factor for me. Every time I leave that place, I'm like, you know what? You're doing okay. Keep doing what you're doing.
It's always like a really interesting arc to talk to you around the holidays because there's just like, there's this like, oh yeah, going back to PA. And then part of it's like, yeah, we get to see, mom and dad and my brother. And then there's like a couple days out where you're like, fuck. And you're like, it's a flight and you're flying to the East Coast and it's cold as balls. And then you go out there and, I catch you in a room in one of your relatives' house on a call, and it's like it's decorated like it's a little house on the prairie or some shit. There's like needle points in the background or a gun on the wall, and you're just like, "How you doing?" And it's like, "It's been 12 hours and 37 minutes." So it's like, "Oh, we're counting." And then there's just like this overwhelming like sense of gratitude after. It's like, "Yeah, bro, I just left in the middle of the night like a prison break, and I feel great. I'm tired. I'm driving to Philadelphia right now, but I feel, man, it's like whenever you talk to a drunk person and they're like, "Oh, I love you, bro." Like when you leave PA, you're like, "Hey, man, yo, thank God we don't fucking still rock that place." Am I right? I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I'm with you." Because we usually both have that experience at the same time. Like we both just like return back to the beginning scene of the crime.
Yeah.
But it's like, and it's funny because I don't know, we're both in a position where, I mean, you and I don't have kids right now that we know about, which fair play. But like, I wonder, like, if I were to ever have kids, I'm not saying I'm going to, how I live a better life now than my parents did when they had me, without a doubt. One of my aversions to having kids is to make sure that people don't have to live the way I lived.
Yeah.
But like, what would you do? Like, how would you instill hard work? If you woke up tomorrow and there was just a kid there and you're like, oh, fuck. But like, you're living well. Do you like, all right, pack up, everyone, we're moving to the ghetto. Like this motherfucker needs some character. Like, how do you teach that from the get-go?
Man, I mean, I'm first off the wrong person to ask this, but in my mind, that looks like reward mechanisms, like having the proper reward mechanisms in place. That there's, you put forward effort, you don't necessarily see the reward for that effort instantly, like because everything is instant gratification now. Like Like, hey, if you're good while we're at your aunt's house, like you can have a candy bar. Like I don't even know what it's like having kids, but there needs to be some sort of delayed gratification that's instilled from an early age, and it needs to be something where they're working to achieve something in which they can feel pride in on their own, and it's not going to be something that the reward is right in front of, not something they can easily grasp. And I'm not saying like, you know, there shouldn't be that in there, but the proportions I think are so skewed right now where everything is right now. Everything's like, oh, you want it prime delivery? We'll have it there this afternoon. Like you can do anything, you can get anything you want so instantly that I think there's so much less or so much of a lower proportion of people who are really willing to work for something that is a long-term goal or something that they may never see the reward from, but they're pursuing on a level that's deeply gratifying for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I think it's, and this is where it gets tough because there's a study done years ago on the correlation between IQ and delayed gratification, and it was done on children, and it was something to the effect of, and I'm butchering this for sure. It was, if you want, I'll give you a cookie right now, but if you wait 15 or 30 minutes, I'll give you two. And the kids who tested higher in intelligence were like, yeah, all right, I'll see you in 30 minutes. Better have my fucking cookies. And the dumb kids were like, nah, I'll take it now. And then when 30 minutes go by and the other kids get two, they're like, yo, what the fuck? And they're like, yo, retard. Like you had an opportunity you had the same deal on the table and you chose to be stupid. And then, but the correlation was intelligence. And then it's like, fuck.
Yeah. I think another thing that's important too is consequences. Like because I can think of an inherent consequence even in that situation is like the consequence is not having a bunch of cookies when homie over here has got a bunch of cookies.
Well, so the consequence when you're from Pennsylvania is like also somehow getting shot. It's also the Pennsylvania study was somehow the guy had one cookie and a bullet in his ass. Like that was the Pennsylvania version of the study that they couldn't publish.
Yeah. Both of them get shot somewhere. It's just
how many cookies do you have when you get capped?
Exactly.
I think that's a metaphor for life, though. It's like, look, life is all hard and all tired, but how many cookies do you have when it's all said and done?
Yeah. No, but I truly believe that people need consequences, and like consequences could be good or bad, right? If we think of like the result of a situation, there's going to be an action, and then there's going to be some sort of consequence for that action, some more positive, some less positive. But if you make bad decisions, you need consequences. And that's something that like I've taught myself time and time again. I continue to do is like, yeah, I know that this is a bad decision and I know that there's a consequence for this decision. But if I'm willing to accept the risk that I may have to endure that consequence, like that's a level of personal responsibility that I'm taking on and I'm owning my decisions around this. And if it's something where someone fucks up and there's no consequence, then now that's a positive reinforcement that the next time they fuck up, there's not going to be that consequence. So I think that's another thing that is very kind of close to this conversation, especially when we're talking about children, is like consequent. You can have a very high level of control on consequences in these very low like low risk scenarios. I guess you can teach someone this at a high velocity because how many choices are a kid or is a kid going to make in a day, and like if you positively reinforce negative behaviors, then that's going to be kind of a snowball effect over time, is they're going to get this positive reinforcement for things that they shouldn't necessarily have. So there needs to be negative consequences for poor decisions.
Yeah. And I think the job as an adult is to impose those on yourself.
Yes.
Right? Like that's the hard part. And I think self-employment does that to a certain degree. Like I know people who work in, like, let's just call them the entrepreneurial space, that I don't do well with authority, but I understand it. Right? Like I don't, we work for ourselves because we don't want to fall into a hierarchy. We like making decisions because we can handle consequences.
Mm-hmm.
I know people who don't like working for the man, if you will, like a conventional lifestyle, and they try and work on their own, and they can't handle consequences.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big difference, right? It's like when you work for yourself, you are the employee and the boss. So if you don't like authority because you have a problem with people telling you what to do, you have to tell yourself what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of the inability to exact hard work in like the entrepreneurial space, like more specific to coaching, is it comes from people who are like uncoachable. Like they were bad employees. It's like, well, now you're a bad employee and you have to learn how to be a boss of a bad employee at the same time, right? It's like understanding your relationship to consequences is such a massive part of being able to work hard, because like you said, it's you need to see missed opportunity as loss.
Yeah.
And I don't think people don't know how much they leave on the table by what am I trying to say? Like, loss aversion is one thing, gaining is another, but people don't see the lack of gain as something, as a loss that they need to avoid, if that makes sense. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I watch people interact in a certain way, and I watch it go good sometimes, and I watch it go bad more often than not. And I go, that person has no idea how many doors he just closed, right? With that post or that live or that, that response to a question, something as simple as like, here's one that gets me all the fucking time. This is the most insane thing I've ever seen people do. And I see it all the time. I see it every fucking day. And it really makes me wonder how people operate. Like, how do you tie your shoes and also do this? Ready? Here's what it is. I'm an online coach. I'm sick or traveling or whatever.
Mm.
I have all of my clients' information. I communicate with them through some channel outside of social media, WhatsApp, an email, text message, what have you. I'm incapable of delivering the service that they paid me for. I'm my whole family's sick or whatever. I don't understand these excuses, but I take to my Instagram story. Clients going to be late on check-ins today. Sick. Thanks for your understanding. Where in your brain are the two cells that talk to each other and go, should we do that? Should we post it? Yeah, no, we should totally post it. That is insane to me. Like, look, okay, I get it. Shit happens. I try to limit how much shit happens in my life. I really don't like when shit happens in my life. I don't like making excuses. I don't like getting stuff. I don't not like getting stuff done. I like getting stuff done. To watch people who their primary source of income is providing a service on the internet announce to an entire prospective client list, there are more people who follow you than follow you and have coaching from you. So like that you are bad at your job is absolutely baffling.
Yeah.
You have all BCC an entire list of your clients. Hey, sorry, 24 hours. No, I'm down with whatever. I'm in the hospital by blah, 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 blah. I don't even know how to describe what my brain feels when I read that. When an online coach who in the same week will be prospecting for business, 4 spots available. Jiunta, I have 4 spots available for coaching. Looking for motivated people who want to put up with my bad excuses why I don't do my job. Like and this is a classic example of what we're talking about. They don't see the harm in it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, and that's not you not gaining. That's you losing. Please be averse to that loss, right? Like I will never in a million years, if I saw a client or a coach do that once, I would never hire that person ever. And they don't see that, X hundreds or thousands of people see that and are registering that, whether consciously or subconsciously. And they're closing off doors, or like, I don't know, people while out on like politics and shit as coaches, or just as people in general.
Yeah.
So many opportunities I think that you and I have or have had have been almost the byproduct of just being the only not stupid people in the room, or I haven't proclaimed my stupidity from the highest tower. Just like, I don't know, everyone else, he hasn't said anything scathing, scandalous. He hasn't done anything stupid. Yeah, I have. You just don't know about it. Thank you. And I hope that you never find out. But it's like, man, people just do yourself a favor and start doing yourself favors. Like
Mhm.
it's not hard. You want to know why? I know, because that's why I do it. Because if it was inherently hard, because like, what is hard work? Okay, do stuff that you don't want to do when you don't want to do it. It's not that difficult. Trust me. If you knew what was on the other side of it, because if you do that for long enough, you know what you get to do? If you do, this is the equation. If you do stuff you don't want to do enough times when you don't want to do it, you know what you get to do? Whatever the fuck you want, whenever the fuck you want to do it. That's what's waiting for you on the other side. It's quite literally the opposite of like, I'll work at a job where they don't pay me enough. Well, so they pay me enough so I don't quit. I work hard enough so I don't get fired. And then when I'm 65, I'll retire and do nothing. Okay, that's bizarro world way to live your life. The real world way to live your life is I'll do a bunch of stuff that I don't want to do when I don't want to do it. And there'll come a certain point where I do whatever the fuck I want to do whenever the fuck I want to do it. That deal is that's the 2 cookies in 15 minutes, bro. Like that is, you're quite literally in the money if you take that. But it's people just, they want to have the 1 cookie and then 15 minutes later have the other. It's like, dude, just fucking just chill. Hold out. Like, and it's not, it's simple. It's not easy. I think that's probably the best way to frame it. It's simple. Just don't do dumb shit for long enough. And then people will go, oh, okay. But it's just, it just blows my mind, man. Like, and the fact that this turned into an episode is just, it's sad. It's sad because it's like, follow up with things, follow up with people, follow through on what you say you're going to do that for long enough and you're going to be okay. But like, I can't stand the pitch and frequency in which I see people bitch about their situations. Well, not only are they not doing anything to help it, they're actively in pursuit of the degradation of their own progress. And they don't even know it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a very intellectual trait that kind of separates people, in my mind, from actually being smart and not. And it can be the differentiator between if they're willing to work hard or not. But that's a certain level of self-assessment, right? It's, you have to be able to take a look at your situation, where you're at, and yourself, and understand that where you're at is a product of who you are, right? And if you're unwilling to accept that, and you're the victim in all these situations, that's a pretty low intelligence trait in my mind. Like, you're unwilling to deal with the reality that's in front of you that you've created for yourself. So unless you can honestly look at yourself and look at the product of your decisions being the reality that you're living in, then you're not truly smart, right? You're not an intellectual person, because you're just wanting to blame some sort of external source or the hand that you've dealt. There's been so many people that have had so many worse hands than you or I or whoever's listening to this, that have made a lot better situation out of that. So I think the honest truth is, you need to look at your situation, your reality, and understand you're there because that's where you put yourself, right? And some level you want to be there. And if you didn't want to be there, then you would change it. And you may get to a point where you don't want to be there so much that you do change it. And I think that's true of anyone. But it starts with understanding that you're the reason that you're in the situation that you're in.
Anything you don't change, you choose.
Yeah.
And effort is free.
It is free.
Suck less, my friends. RX Radio out for the week.